Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bourbon Bites Whiskey Reviews with a gaming twist. Yes, you may notice I am not in my normal setup. I don't have my fancy green screen backdrop as usual, but I'm actually in Ventura, California. It's actually celebrating my 5-year wedding anniversary, so I'm not at home, but I am very excited to be doing this stream because I've been looking forward to it for a really long time. So I want to say a shout out to everyone. I want to say a quick shout out to everyone in the chat. There we go. That's what I meant to say. I saw some people were hanging out earlier. I see Whiskey Burger in the chat. Emily Chambers. Good to see you, Emily. Zofer's in the chat. I'm here in California with you, Clifton. Yeah, Zofer. You're one of the few because so many people are hanging out with Perry over in Kentucky for the This Is My Bourbon Weekend meetup. I'm so jealous. I really wish I was with you guys. But for those of you that are at the meetup, enjoy the meetup. If you're watching the replay, say hello in the chat below. But good to see you, Zofer. Thank you for hanging out with me in California. Sugar Kitty's in the chat as well. Sugar Kitty, good to see you. I'm so glad to see you here tonight. I'm glad that we. I was worried about this because I knew I'd be in a hotel room, and I was a bit worried that I would not have good internet signal. But so far, so good. So if you guys have any issues throughout the night and you see oh, my audio or my video is glitching out, please let me know. I have a couple of backup options. But it's up to you guys to let me know if that happens. But so far, so good. Lil, all the way in Australia, says cheers and happy Friday. Happy Friday to you, Lil. It's not quite Friday here yet, but Friday is our actual anniversary, so we're here a day early. Death with Dogs in the chat. Good to see you. Mr. Jigs. Hello, everyone. Cheers to you, Mr. Jigs. Cliffy looks ready for the summer. Hey, I've been hanging out in Ventura. I've been having a good day so far. We've visited a lot of breweries, and there's actually a really cool cocktail bar we actually just got back from. It was called Justin, what was it called? Rocks and Drams. Drums and Drams, Rocks and Drams, Dungeons and Drams. I get confused, but it was Rocks and Drams here in Ventura. Really, really fantastic. The bartenders there were incredible. But you know what's also incredible? Our guest here tonight. So please welcome to the show, Jason Brauner from Buzzard's Roost. Jason, welcome to the show.
How you doing?
Good. I was so focused. So I had just listened to my friend Perry's podcast right before this, and I realized he messed up your last name. I'm like, I'm not going to mess up his last name. And I was so focused on that I forgot the brand. So apologies.
Look, I've been called worse, so it's not a big
deal. So, Jason, I'm so glad to have you on the show. I've heard so much about Buzzard's Roost, and I'm really interested to try some of these more recent expressions that you guys have been doing. I know, like I said, a lot of my viewers are friends of Perry and viewers of Perry's podcast. And you guys introduced yourselves as the rye people. But now you're venturing out into some interesting finishing, some toasted barrels, and even barrel strength bourbon. So I'm so excited to have you on to talk about these.
Yeah, what's crazy is I've been a bourbon guy forever. Mm-hmm. And everybody thought when I came out with my ryes, it's like, have you tried Jason's bourbon? And it's like, I had to tell them for years, it's, a couple of years, it's not bourbon, it's rye. So we didn't do bourbon till just recently. So, but we really did start with ryes. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you said on previous interviews that you're not really a rye guy, but you guys got into rye because you wanted to bring rye to bourbon drinkers, right? So that's really interesting because I started as a bourbon drinker for sure. I feel like I've ventured out to rye, but that's not to say that I'm not still a bourbon drinker. I'm still a bourbon drinker at heart. So I'm really excited to try some of these more bourbon forward ryes that we're trying tonight, as well as your barrel strength bourbon, which we're going to get to a bit later. So for the people that are new to you, and like I said, a lot of my viewers are also friends of Perry. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with Buzzard's Roost?
Well, it depends how long you've got. I mean, I'm kind of old, but I started out. I actually opened a restaurant when I was 21. Mm. So I got in the restaurant business very early. I had a lot more time than I had money. But that gave me a palate. I'm not quite a chef, but I feel that I've been in the food industry for long enough to know what good stuff tastes like. So I opened bourbons in 2005. And I always tell people, so that was 17 years ago. We've been doing the bourbon thing for quite a bit. And, we were out to kind of educate the world about bourbon. I think at that time it was somewhat undermarketed. And, there's so many flavors in bourbon. We were just, like I said, we were out to educate the world about bourbon.
So you guys got started just a few years ago, right? Like when did you guys get started?
So with the Buzzard's Roost, we got started in 2019.
Oh wow. So
And,
very, very recently. That's
yeah.
awesome.
And to me, it was a natural progression because Bourbon's Bistro started in 2005. And we had, we did some of the, we had flights. And I mean, really, we were kind of one of the first bourbon bars, bourbon restaurants. But what that drew me to is my progression was to have my own whiskey label.
Hmm.
And after meeting every master distiller and tasting all these great whiskeys and doing single barrel programs and things, I realized that I wanted my own whiskey. So, in 2019, few years before that, we had planned on starting a distillery. I had a hard time raising 30 million bucks, so we
Sure.
decided to, we decided to source some whiskey.
Mm.
Um, but if you talk to any master distiller, about 70% of the flavor comes from the wood.
Hmm.
So, I mean, we're very transparent about where we source from. We're sourcing from MGP, and what we do in our rebarreling process kind of makes all the difference in the world. And that's kind of a quick synopsis of bringing us up to date.
Sure. So you, like you said, like you
So,
guys aren't really trying to be out to like make whiskey. You guys are out to, mature whiskey, or you guys are doing something interesting with the barrel. Do you guys consider it finishing, or do you guys consider it like extra aging? I'm just curious what you guys, portray it as.
I mean, when you talk about finishing, I mean, I think Angel's Envy, which, you got to love Wes and Lincoln Henderson for what a great concept of finishing. I think that's kind of finishing, but we almost do some extra aging.
Hmm.
We use brand new 53-gallon white oak barrels for the most part. We do use some French oak in some of our work, but all of ours is through barrel maturation.
Hmm.
We do a heavy toast, and we use an exclusive number one char, which is kind of unheard of with the industry.
Hmm.
I work very closely with Independent Stave Company,
Hmm.
and we've developed over 15 finishing barrels that are proprietary to Buzzard's Roost. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, the same guy that developed my program developed the 46 program. And I
Oh,
would
really?
assume that a lot of your listeners are familiar with 46, where they put in the different staves.
Very much so.
You
Yeah,
know,
I'm a huge fan of that.
yeah. Well, we don't use staves; we use whole barrels,
Hmm.
and so it makes a huge difference. And like I said, my experience in the whiskey business and talking to all the master distillers, where all the 70% of the flavor comes from the barrel. We started we almost reverse engineered it and worked our way backwards. Everybody's using MGP juice, which is great juice.
Hmm.
But you've got blending skills, and I think I have that. But we're taking it to the next level with finishing it in brand new barrels that we've charred and toasted, and through chemical extraction that Independent Stave does, the research that they do, we can bring the good stuff to the surface and leave the bad stuff behind.
Absolutely. So I see there are a few fans in the chat that are fans of what you guys are doing at Buzzard's Roost. I see Adam from Tennessee joining us, Swan from Kentucky, which I know you're based in Kentucky, Steven Sussman from New York, Lil from Australia. So we got people all over. Zopher also from California. I just want to give a couple shout outs. Mr. Jigs, I'm not sure where you're from, but he says, I've had the barrel proof rye, small batch rye, single barrel rye, and toasted. Hoping to find the cigar blend. Enjoy them all. Well, Mr. Jigs, we're going to get to some of those tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really excited to try these. So I told Jason a bit before, like the only one that I've tried so far is the bourbon. But I'm really, really excited to try these different expressions of the rye. Like I said, I have the toasted barrel rye, the cigar blend rye, and the barrel strength bourbon. So we're saving the bourbon for last because I know you guys got started with the rye. So I recall back to my friend Perry's podcast. You're not normally a rye guy. But what is it about the ryes that you guys are releasing through Buzzard's Roost that draws you in? Like, are they, like you said, the bourbon drinkers rye? Is that still how you feel about it?
Exactly. I got into a conversation with him. My friend, now he's become a close friend because we spent so much time together, is my friend down at Independent Stave Company,
Mhm.
and he's in charge of their wood research department. And he was coming into bourbons for years, and then we started talking about this. He said, I'm doing some really cool things with some ryes. And I told him I absolutely hated ryes because, well, there's a place for ryes because in the cocktail world, there's definitely a place for ryes. They
Right, the
stand up.
spiciness from the cocktail. Like I was the same way. So I was 100% bourbon guy, but I actually got into ryes from the cocktails. Like you said, the spiciness. I've since become a bit of a rye neat drinker, but it took me a while because of like how spicy it was. Were you kind of the same way?
Exactly. Because ryes I can never comfortably sit around and sip on.
Mm.
I mean, honestly, maybe I've got a sweet tooth or something, but I just could not honestly sit around and sip on ryes. So I said, if you can make me a sipping rye to where I can sit around and enjoy sipping a rye, then we've actually done something. And he gave me a couple of experimental things, and I'm like, I'm all in. Let's do this. Let's give it a shot and try it. And we really came up. I mean, it's in the name. It's sipping whiskeys, and I just love to slow down, sit around, and sip whiskeys, whether it's ryes or bourbons, or even an occasional scotch. So
Only occasionally.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely. I see Joe's dropping the links to you guys' website. So if you guys are curious more about Buzzard's Roost, feel free to check out their website after the stream. I also have it down in the description below. By the way, welcome, Joe. Thank you for tuning in. I see my friend Bill is here at Dungeons at Drams, which is another channel that I participate on Tuesday nights. So good to see you, Bill. Good to see a huge crowd out here tonight. So let's get started with our first whiskey, right? Let's talk about this first one that I have here. This is the Toasted Barrel Rye Whiskey. Can you tell us a little bit about this? I know this is relatively new.
yeah. Well, it actually came out last year.
Okay,
And
relatively.
no, I mean we're relatively new, so it's all juxtaposition. But this is one that we do not. We do a very very heavy toast, and
Mm,
we're very exclusive with number one char. But we did not use a char on this barrel because legally, if it's toasted, you have to say it's toasted. So
okay.
we heavily toasted this barrel. It's a 95% rye, 5% barley from MGP.
Hmm.
This is roughly, it may be 4 years old. We were working with some 3-year-old stuff. I think now we've graduated to 4 years, but it's a 4-year-old whiskey out of Indiana. We sent it over here to Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Hmm.
We rebarrel it. It sits in our barrels, depending on the weather and where it is in the warehouse, anywhere from 2 to 6 months. Okay, and then and toasted tends to react a little bit better than some of our other ones, just because it doesn't have that char layer it's got to fight through.
Sure.
Um, but the toasted came out. This one last year won a double gold in the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, and this year we only got a gold. So we're a little deflated. We wanted a double gold 2 years in a row, but
Still
double
though, that's an
yeah,
awesome honor. That's actually one of the biggest, spirits competitions I'm aware of. So that you guys
exactly.
got double gold and then gold, that's absolutely fantastic. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, that's the only competition that we send our spirits to, because for one, it's recognized by the industry
Hmm.
as a whole, and two, we're just not out there trying to rack up awards. I mean, we want them to mean something. We're not, everybody gets a trophy type thing.
Right. So with this one, so this is a toasted rye. Like you said, you guys do like a level 1 char, so you're not doing too much charring on it. You're doing a lot of toasting. which we don't really see too often. I know there's a couple other brands that do customize the toast and the char from MGP, but you guys, I think, as far as I'm aware, you guys are one of the first to do this. So I'm really excited to dive in this one and see, what you guys have come up with here.
Yeah, well, have at it. I mean, you're not going to hurt my feelings either way. Some people totally love it, and then you get a few that don't. But we have about 7 different expressions out now,
Mm-hmm.
and so what's really cool is nobody falls into, we don't have that one that everybody loves. Like,
Sure.
they gravitate towards this. It's all spread across the board, and I think we're doing our job because, uh, we know that there's several different palettes out there. And
Well, I'm excited to try this. So cheers, and thank you for sharing this with me.
Cheers.
Oh, wow. I was going to say on the nose, it's similar to what I'm used to with like the 95.5 rye from Indiana. But I will say this has an extra layer to it, right? Like it's not just that. Because I've had plenty that are just that bottled and like, oh, here you go, your 95.5 rye. But you guys have done something really unique with it. So can you talk a little bit about like what the process is like when you're taking in those Indiana rye whiskeys? Like, what do you guys do? I know you guys put it into the barrels, but like, how long do you guys age them in the secondary barrels?
Well, what one good thing is we all have finally realized, especially being from Kentucky and here in Kentucky, that MGP makes good whiskey.
Mhm.
We're not taking bad whiskey and making it better.
Right.
I think we're taking good whiskey and making it great. So
Mm.
we're starting with a good product. Um, but with our toasting process and our barrel process, it's just a whole different gig that people haven't had the technology to. Like, I'm old school. I love the old school ways of doing things. But this new technology is really cool, and it's not like we're cheating. We're just using in every product, but this we're using a number one char, which is unheard of in the industry.
Mhm.
But we're really heavily toasting the barrels because through chemical extraction, we can tell what's going on, what we're pulling out of the wood. We're pulling the furfurols, the eugenols, the glycols, and leaving all the tannins and things behind. I mean, it's the science behind it's unbelievable, and there's still a little bit of art to the blending, but it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it it's hard to explain. I mean, it really,
No, and I see we have quite a few fans in the chat. Our friend Swan says the roosted chicken release was super fun from you guys. Can we expect more fun things like that? I'm not aware of that. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
well, we did. This is one of our barrels that we've done. It's called a brewer's toast.
Mm.
So we toasted a barrel specifically to pair with whiskey and beer. So we did this barrel application. We made 2 barrels of just a 53-gallon barrel. We gave against the grain 1 barrel, and we took 1 barrel. We put whiskey in it. They put beer in it. Okay, same toast profile, whatever.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, they gave a beer can and we gave a little whiskey bottle, and you're supposed to kind of drink them side by side, right?
Mm.
And you could tell what the barrel put on each spirit. It was so cool because you would drink one and drink the other. They were meant to be drank side by side, and you
Hmm.
could see the parallels that the beer put on 2 different spirits. It was really cool how much the barrel influences that.
Wow, that's awesome. I was not aware of that release, but that's super exciting.
It was very minuscule, and it was a cool thing. I think it was under marketed, but we do plan to do some other collaborations with some beer companies soon.
Yeah, our friend Zofer says that sounds fun. Yeah, Zofer's a big beer guy, so he's definitely excited about that one. Well, I would say, that, like I said, you guys are one of the first to do the toasted barrel, especially with Indiana whiskey. But
Sure.
I'm really excited about what's coming next. So you guys also have this cigar rye, which, by the way, I will tell you this. as soon as I announced to my patrons that I was doing Buzzard's Roost on the channel, they said, "Please tell me you got the Cigar Rye to review." I'm like, "Yes, I did. I have not tried it until now, but everyone was so excited to hear my thoughts on this one." So tell us about this one. I know you kind of teased it on previous like podcasts and streams, but what's up with the Cigar Rye?
We have this was another, our whole company right now, it seems just to be experimenting with things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very fun. But we know we have great people on our board who has good palates, and I've kind of developed a palate over the years. So, uh, we kind of think that we're on the right track. What we've done here with the cigar is we did our heavily toasted barrel. We
Mm-hmm.
draw all those sugars to the surface. We did a number one char, as we always do. But then we took some Kentucky tobacco and cold smoked the barrel with tobacco. So there was no really direct heat to it. We just basically, and I'm not saying too much about our process, but because we're transparent about everything we do, but some of the barrel stuff we can't talk about because
Sure.
somebody will try to copy it. But we actually blew tobacco smoke, Kentucky tobacco smoke, through the barrel for a certain amount of time. And the
Wow.
influence that it has was just from the smoke. And we have a sister product that we did that's called our peated barrel, which we're changing the name to called smoked barrel, which was done with some Highland peat. We actually imported some Highland peat from Scotland and cold smoked the barrel with some peat, and it's got these little Scotchy tones to it. It's way cool. But the cigar
That's
rye
super
is
unique.
definitely close to my heart. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say both of those. That's a very unique way of going about it. I know when other people have done like an Isla style rye, they either use the staves or they do more of a finishing versus the actual smoke. So I mean, even cigar, like when people say cigar blend or whatever, you think it's like it doesn't really mean much. You guys are literally smoking tobacco to like put into the barrel. I think it's unheard of, at least in my experience. So I'm super excited to try this one.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of cigars out there but I don't think they use the same process we do. I
That's
think
what I was
maybe
gonna say. Yeah,
just
it's totally
named.
different from whatever I've heard up to this point.
No, so we're all about, like I said, I'm old school, traditional of how things are done,
Mhm.
but we use some new innovation that's still in that box. Like we're not cheating. We're not putting whiskey into flavored barrels or doing anything like that. All of our barrels are brand new. Like I said, 53 gallon. We don't use smaller barrels, anything like that. We use a heavily toast and a number one char. And we use them, they probably sit in our barrels for, like I said, anywhere from between 2 and 6 months. And then we don't use them again. So it's an expensive process, but we think it's well worth it.
I'm so excited to try this. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna go ahead and nose the cigar rye.
Ooh, there it is.
Oh man, it smells so different than the toast that I just came off of. Ooh. What does this give you? Like, as someone that wasn't the biggest rye fan in the beginning, like what is special about the cigar rye to you?
There's so much going on with it.
Mm.
It had so I call our ryes bourbon drinkers ryes. So we've brought those bourbon flavors out of the barrel with the number one char, adding color and flavor, and then to smoke it with the tobacco because everybody knows that bourbon has these tobacco-y notes to it regardless. These leathery tobacco smoky flavors. So
Right.
I think we've just enhanced that just a little bit. Um, it's almost like the tobacco notes are on 10 at this point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, like it's completely different than anything I've smelled in that territory before. So I'm looking forward to trying it. So cheers.
Cheers.
Oh wow. That's fantastic. That's actually right up my alley. Flavor wise, it has a bit of that like, wow, I wasn't expecting so much tobacco kind of flavor. That's legit. That's not even like just like a hint of tobacco. That's a lot of that. Wow. Never experienced anything like that before.
Yeah, there's
That's
a lot going on there.
yeah. Because when I hear like I see that a few people in the chat have heard cigar before. Our friend Swan says Heaven's Door uses barrels that age cigars. You guys are out here using some voodoo with Kentucky tobacco. I love it. That's how I feel too. Like I've never had that much influence from the tobacco before. That works so well. Oh my gosh, I love this. This is actually fantastic.
Like I said, there's a lot going on. It's really cool. It's very complex. Um, like I said, it's all with the help of Independent Stave Company. And what's crazy is, our company is small enough. We don't have to pay for that innovation, but we
Yeah.
have utilized it. It's basically Independent Stave's wood research department, and we've utilized it, and we've locked down 15 proprietary barrels. So I don't know how it gets any better than that, really, because and we're still scratching the surface of what's going on with the wood and the research, but it's really cool.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I feel like I hear about Independent Stave, but I feel like there are a few other like cooperages that we've been hearing a lot about. But like, are there very many brands like yourself that actually work with like Independent Stave and like doing the custom barrels and things like that? I feel like I don't hear about that too often.
Well, I know that the wood research department down there, he was in charge of, like I said, the Makers 46 program,
Hmm.
as well as I think he did Basil Hayden Toasted. And I know he does a lot of work with Jim Beam. He works with a lot of people around the country. We're not the only
Okay.
ones, but I think we're the ones to really take it by the horns and take full advantage of it.
Absolutely. I see a lot of people in the chat that are excited. Emily Chambers, which is one of our mods here, she says, I gotta try the tobacco. And then Zophar, who's a patron, says, that sounds so fun and interesting. So suddenly they are very, very interested in this one. Yeah. I I honestly, and I told you this before the stream, I haven't actually tried any of these other than I had a pour of the bourbon, which we're about to get to. This is my first time trying any of the ryes from you guys. Fantastic. That cigar rye. Now, can we talk a little bit about like where that's available? Because I'm in Southern California. Can I get that here, or is it like a certain few states that we can actually get that in?
Well, unfortunately, I mean, even though we seem like we're kind of a test company,
Hmm.
we're going to be in 15 states by the end of the year.
Okay.
We're also in I think Alberta, Canada.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
but that was truly and it's blown up.
Mhm.
The media around it's been insane, but we truly only did 3 barrels of that.
Oh really?
Yeah, but it was a test market, and it
Mhm.
was supposed to be just here for Kentucky, and we ended up sending, I think, a little bit to New Mexico and a little bit to Massachusetts. But we are going to do more of it. I can tell you that.
I was gonna say, my opinion, do more of that because I've had so much Indiana rye whiskey, which I didn't say this earlier, but I'm a huge fan of Indiana rye whiskey. I love the 95.5 mash bill, which you didn't mention mash bill. Is this the same mash bill as the 95.5?
All that's all we do is 95.5. From of our rise from there are 95.5 always.
Gotcha. So I would say this is the most interesting twist on a 95.5 rye from MGP that I've ever seen.
Yeah, yeah.
So as a fan of that whiskey, that mash bill, do more of this. This is fantastic. I cannot recommend this enough.
We
So
will.
good.
We've definitely, and it takes a little process of what we're doing. So
Mm.
it has to sit in our barrels for several months. But we are laying more down, and there should be a little bit more in the fall, and hopefully it'll be in several other states.
That's super exciting. So let's go and move on to the bourbon, because I know the bourbon is relatively new for you guys. Like I said, my friend Perry, who a lot of these people are here from. By the way, I noticed there's a slightly smaller crowd than normal tonight. I will say Perry, our friend at This Is My Bourbon podcast, is doing his in-person meetup this weekend. So like literally starting today. So I know a lot of people aren't here that would normally tune in. Hopefully you guys can catch the replay. Please tune in, because I know, like, again, that's how I learned about Buzzard's Roost and Jason, because of that podcast. So I'm looking forward to having you guys tune in later to talk about this. But this bourbon is relatively new for you guys. Can you tell us a little bit about this? This is the barrel strength.
Yeah, once again, we're of course we've got plans on having our own one day of all of our juice, but we are sourcing from MGP. This is two different mash bills, but they're both high rye mash bills. So we have a 21% rye mash bill. And we have a 36% rye mash bill. There's 4 and 6 year blend. And then we finished it in 3 of our barrels, 3 of our finishing barrels. So there's a lot going on. This one comes in at barrel strength because that's where we thought it just fit well. Yeah, I think you should have about the 114.
So this one is 114.4. So right on track.
Right. So there's a lot going on.
Well, I was going to ask. So is this more of like a blend versus a single barrel, or with this release, is the barrel strength a single barrel, or is it like a small batch?
It's definitely not a single barrel. So what we did is
I'm not sure if we lost Jason or if we lost me. Let me see what I can do about this. If you guys are in the chat, and if we lost Jason, please let me know, because we could have lost me as well. Let me just refresh this.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds like we lost Jason. Okay. So, okay.
Are we back?
Thank you guys. So Jason, we actually lost you for a few seconds. I think you're still not back yet. You might be coming back. Here we go. Jason, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I thought it was me. I was like, I'm relying on hotel Wi-Fi here, so I totally thought it was myself. So I think we lost you for a second. You were telling us a bit about shoot, I got sidetracked.
We're talking about the bourbon somehow. I don't know.
Yes, yeah, we're talking about like how you came up with like the I don't know.
Well, anyhow, I'll start over.
Okay.
It is MGP juice again.
Mm-hmm.
2 high rye mash bills for bourbon, a 21% rye, 36% rye. It's 4 and 6 year blend. And you asked if it was a single barrel. And
that's what it was. Thank you for the reminder. I just got like I literally thought it was my hotel Wi-Fi. I was like, oh no, they promised me it would be good tonight.
Yeah. And what we did is we decided to take, as a company, our single barrels off the market because we didn't want to compete with we have a single barrel program for liquor stores and restaurants and bars. Mm-hmm. So especially in liquor stores, I didn't want my single barrel competing with their single barrel. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we pulled all of our single barrels off the mark. Well, we didn't pull them off. We just stopped doing them. And we pick single barrels. Like I'll go through and pick a batch of, how many barrels do we have to sell to on premise and off premise. So we do 20 or 30 barrels, and these are good enough to be picked through, and stores can have them as single barrels. So this is not a single barrel. It's a batch. It's kind of a small batch. And that's why we do it at barrel strength. And it's like I said, there's a lot going on. It's 3 of our finishing barrels, two different mix of years and also two different mash bills.
Gotcha. So you said two different mix of years. Like, is there like an estimate, like just in general, like age of these? Like, typically, are they like the 3 year, kind of like the rye? Or are they maybe a bit older? I'm just out of curiosity.
Now the bourbon is 4 and 6 year.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 and 6 year, and to be honest with you, if our bourbon was supposed to be ready last Derby, and we didn't bring it out till last fall. So, it wasn't ready for the market. And I didn't think it was aged well enough, and we just weren't ready to put it out. So we're not going to put anything out that we don't think is ready to go out.
Sure.
And that's the way it is. And we do have investors, and I told them this is basically the way we're going to work, or we're not going to work together. So, I mean, I'm pretty strict on how I like my whiskey, and that's just the way it is. That's the way it will always be.
Awesome. I'm excited to try it. So cheers, Jason. Thank you for sharing this with me. Ooh, that's like a nice like don't want to say like graham cracker, or there's like some kind of like baked like cracker kind of note there on the like the mid palate that I've had a lot of Indiana rye. Don't think I've quite got that note before. So do you think that's coming from like your barrels, like the additional like toasting, or what you guys are doing with the barrels? Do you think that's influencing the flavor that dramatically?
Yeah, like I said, for sure. I mean, like I said, if you've got whiskey people out there, which you do, that 70% of the flavor comes from the barrel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're kind of reverse engineering it and kind of working backwards. My wife says it always tastes like a Christmas cookie.
Absolutely. I think we're on the same track. Like I said, the first thing that came to mind was like a graham cracker, like that cinnamon cracker, like kind of not like cracker, like like a Ritz cracker, but like cracker like a like shortbread cookie. So like I think we're absolutely onto the same track with that. That's really, really interesting. And it's so fun to try the bourbon after coming off the rye, because the rye, like you said, is a bourbon drinker's rye. However, I'm glad we're back in bourbon territory now, so I'm very excited to be back over here. Wow.
Well, I've lived in the bourbon world for a long time, and that's where I feel at home. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the typical bourbon notes that we would expect. Because I mean, I'm speaking for myself and a few of the viewers here. We're familiar with Indiana rye. We've tried it before, but this is giving a very unique characteristic of that I feel like I have not had. It's the shortbread, kind of the thing. I almost want to say like kind of like an Irish whiskey. There's a little bit of that like baked kind of like shortbread cookie note that I'm getting on this that I have not gotten on any other Indiana bourbon.
Right. It's not as malty as maybe an Irish whiskey would be, but it is very viscous. So it does kind of fill your mouth, and not so much viscous as being oily, but just having this coating,
Man, that's really great. I'm glad to have a chance to try that, because like I said, I listened to my friend Perry's podcast earlier. You guys were still working on the bourbon at the time, so I'm so glad to have a chance to try it from you guys, because this, I mean, I love the rye. Not gonna lie, like that cigar rye was fantastic. Honestly, probably one of the most. Actually, no, I'll be real. The best Indiana rye expression I've ever experienced, because you guys are doing something different with it, and I love that about that. So this is really.
I mean, we really appreciate it. And like I said, we're just kind of. I think we're scratching the surface with what we've got going on, and God forbid, once I get next to a still, and we're working on getting our own still and sourcing our own new make, and it's a long process, but I have long views. So one day,
well, I was gonna say, like, what's next for you guys? Because again, a lot of things we're trying right now are relatively new for you guys. Like you mentioned before, like getting new make from distilleries in Kentucky. Is that what you want to do? Do you want to, not necessarily distill, but like do the full maturation yourself? From new make to 5-6 year old whiskey. Like, I'm curious to see what your goals are.
Well, we do have some contract with some of the two of the bigger distilleries to make our own new make.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming up in next year or so. But we also have we have a doubler that we've bought, so we could take some first run it through our doubler, and that will be happening this year as well. But we also have sights on about a 14-inch column still, maybe in the next year or two,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that we will be producing our own. And in 2 to 4 years, we're going to have some rye and some bourbon on the market that is actually ours from inception, the get go. And then we won't be double barreling anymore. We'll be putting it in our innovative barrels, and I think it's going to make a huge, huge change.
Because you guys, I don't know, I'm not sure if we mentioned this earlier, but the secondary finishing barrels you guys are using are new charred oak or new barrels. They're not like used barrels, right?
No, no, absolutely not. We use brand new barrels, so
Okay.
it's a very expensive process.
Mm-hmm.
And then we use them one time. And if you think about a 20-year-old Pappy barrel or whatever, we use our barrels for 2 to 6 months, and they
Mm-hmm.
have so much flavor. And then we ship them off, and they still have flavor. So I guess once the company gets up and running, and that'll be hopefully another revenue source for us to source our unique barrels to some of these other places who do scotch or beer or wine or tequila or whatever, because our barrels have a flavor profile that we've developed.
Absolutely.
So
I see
yeah.
people in the chat like recommending. You mentioned earlier, like working with other distilleries. I see our friend Swan says new riff, new make with that cigar blend finish. Oh boy, already got some ideas flowing. People are very excited. I think Swan had some of the cigar rye. Honestly, that's my favorite thing I'm trying because again, like I said, I'm such a fan of 95.5 rye from Indiana. This
Sure.
is the most interesting take I've ever seen on that, and I'm so excited to see what you guys do next.
Yeah, well, we've got a few things in the works, but we're going to try to do some growth right now. Like I said, we're hopefully going to be in about 15 states by the end of the year,
Mm.
mainly on the East Coast. We are in New Mexico, and we're also in Canada. Um, but
I'll have to hit up my friends.
we're just crossing our fingers and loving everything about it, and hoping everybody's digging it as well.
Well, I definitely am, and hopefully you guys will make it to Southern California soon because I'm really excited to try more from you guys. This was great. I want more.
Well, if not, we'll send you some, or you can come here. It's not a big deal.
That's true. You know what? I would love to come to Kentucky sometime soon. I went like a year and a half ago, but I'm due for a trip back soon.
I mean, you could have done your anniversary here.
Yeah, I mean, true. Maybe next year. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to see what you guys are doing next. If anyone's listening to this, that you can get Buzzard's Roost. Honestly, all of these are really fantastic, really intricate expressions. Like even if you hear, oh, it's Indiana rye, it's Indiana bourbon. Try it. Trust me. This is some of the like best expressions of Indiana rye that I've ever had before. So seriously, take my word for it. It's really, really good stuff. But Jason, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so glad to have you on. And where
Thank
can
you so
people can
much for
find you
having
on
me.
the web? I know Buzzard Juice has an Instagram, but do you have your own Instagram?
Yes, I am. I am the no bluegrass bourbon baron. Yes.
Yes, that popped up when I was typing your name. I was like, is that him? Is that him? Okay, it is you. Okay, good.
Yeah, the
Bluegrass
bluegrass
Burma. And if
bourbon
you guys
baron
if you
on
guys want to go to
Instagram.
my Instagram, I tagged him on my story earlier today. So go give him a follow. Support the brand. They're really doing some incredible stuff, and I really can't wait to see what you guys do next because this is fantastic. You guys are checking all the boxes for me. So
Yeah. Well,
so
thank you so much, and cheers, everyone.
cheers to you, and thank you everyone for tuning in. I'll see you guys next week. We have another special guest coming on, but Jason, thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
All right, bye.